U.S. Treasury I Bonds are giving off an eye-popping 9.62% interest virtually risk-free. But the ability to lock in that rate is going away at the end of October, which begs the question, what the hell is an I bond? I've resisted looking at I bonds and making this video because, I don't know, they're bonds, like, stocks, ETFs, index funds, Bitcoin, crypto, like all that stuff interests me at least a little bit. Bonds, on the other hand, like, you know what I think about when I think of bonds?
My grandmother gave me a savings bond when I was a kid. I get $25 in 1993, so that'll be good.
Exactly. But with everything going on in the world right now, the market doing what it's doing, and I bonds given 9.62% interest, it is just something that I couldn't ignore anymore. So I dug in. I bonds are the Series I savings bond by the U.S. Treasury. Here's a quick rundown of the details, and we'll go over each one in depth. I bonds are the U.S. Treasury's Series I savings bond. It's a 30-year bond that can be redeemed after 1 year. It's currently giving a 9.62% interest rate. Interest accrues monthly, but compounds semi-annually. There's a limit of $10,000 max per person per year. And while you can redeem the bond after 1 year, redeeming the bond between years 1 and 5 results in a penalty of the last 3 months of interest. And lastly, the bond can only be purchased on the Treasury Direct website. All right, so that was a lot of information. We're gonna go through each one in detail, starting with what the heck is a bond? A bond is like a loan from an investor to a borrower. And in this case, the borrower is the US government. And what you're doing is you're giving them money and they're guaranteeing that they're going to give you interest back on the money that you give them. And in general, the biggest risk with a bond is that the borrower, in this case, the US government, if they go into default, they won't be able to give you your interest or potentially the principal that you originally gave them. Now, the reason why Treasury bonds are usually looked at as virtually risk-free is that the possibility of the US government defaulting is usually almost none. And the reason for that is if they get to a point to where they can't pay back their debts, we print more money and then we pay back the debts with the new money that we printed. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's not great, but that's why when people talk about treasury bonds being virtually risk-free, that's why they say that. And that's actually going to be a really important point as we talk about what these are and who they're best for. Part 2, the interest rate. I bonds are currently giving a 9.62% interest rate. You should know that the interest is taxable, so you need to prepare for that anytime you pay your taxes, but you do get a choice. So you can either pay the tax in the year that it accrues, or you can wait until you redeem the bond and get all of your accrued interest back, and then take the tax hit then. And when we talk about the interest and how it's paid in the bond, it accrues monthly, but compounds on a semi-annual basis. And let me explain what this means, because I know this is confusing if you're not really familiar with bonds or just with interest rates and finance in general. Your balance is going to increase each month with the monthly value of the interest that you earned. So in order to calculate the amount of interest that you're going to earn, you would take your rate, in this case 9.62%, divide it by 12, which is the number of months in a year, and then multiply that by your principal amount. Now what that means is that you'll accrue interest every month, and then every 6 months, all that interest gets put into your principal, so that interest going forward will also include that interest that was compounded. Hopefully that made sense. And this is the magic of compounding interest. The more that it grows and compounds, the more interest you earn because the principal is growing. I'm gonna get on my phone and we're gonna do an example. Let's say that you buy this I bond and you get your 9.62% interest rate. And so for the first 6 months, you put in $10,000 and your interest accrues every month. So by the end of the 6 months, you get an extra $480. So after 6 months, that $480 is now added to your principal amount. So in month number 7, it's going to calculate your interest based on a principal amount of $10,480, not $10,000. So as you can see, over time, that interest continues to compound because it gets added to the principal amount every 6 months. And in terms of how the accrued interest works, you don't actually get cash flows from the US Treasury, so it's not like you're gonna get that monthly interest into your bank account. They just accrue the interest into your Treasury Direct balance, and then you get it all when you redeem. So if you're looking for monthly cash flows that you take out, it doesn't really work that way. So in terms of the I bonds interest rate, it's actually based on inflation data, and it changes every 6 months. In May and November. And so last May is when they decided on the 9.62% interest rate. And it's going to be updated again in November, which is coming up. And at this point, people expect it to be lower than 9.62%. But if you're interested in getting that rate, you still can now. So basically, any bond that you get between now and the end of October, you'll get that 9.62% rate for the first 6 months. What that means is that the interest rate you're going to get for the first 6 months will be known, but you won't be able to redeem your bond for a full year. The rate that you get for the next 6 months before you can redeem might be quite a bit lower than what you signed up for. And just a quick note, if you are looking to get that 9.62% rate before the end of October, make sure that you put your request on the Treasury Direct website by October, not October 31st. On the Treasury Direct website, it tells you that most requests are processed for the next business day. So if you do it on October 31st, it's likely not going to get the October rate. It'll probably be November. So just to be safe, do it earlier and then it should hit for October 31st. Part 3. Buying and redeeming. All right, so we talked about there's a limit of $10,000 per social security number or EIN. So obviously, if you have more than that, you'll have to wait and do it over multiple years. If you have less than 10,000, it's not a problem. But regardless of the amount, you still have to wait the full year before you can redeem anything out of the bond. But after the first year, you can redeem your money to get it back and you'll get your interest. But if you redeem it before 5 years, then you will get a penalty of 3 months of the interest that you earned. So the last 3 months that you earned, you basically won't get. So just as an example, let's say that you buy an I bond and then 18 months later you decide to redeem it for cash. What'll happen is you can, obviously because it's past 1 year, but instead of getting 18 months of interest that you accrued, you'll only get the initial 15 months of interest. The last 3 months of interest are basically the penalty that you pay. And then lastly, the bonds can only be purchased on the Treasury Direct website. I will say it is a god-awful looking site that looks like it was made in the 90s, but you know, hey, retro's back. Whatever. So now that we kind of went over the basics of what it is, hopefully you have a better idea of what exactly the I bond is and what it can do for you. But let's talk a little bit about who is this good for?
War, what is it good for?
I don't think it's for everybody. I think if you're looking for something that's a good long-term investment that's going to grow, obviously this probably isn't the path. There is one situation where I think the I bond can be a pretty good deal, and that's for enhancing your emergency fund. Your emergency fund usually needs to be in a savings account. And why that is because if you need access to the money immediately, which is usually how emergencies work, then you need it in an account that you can access at all times. So the I bond not being able to be redeemed for a year is a big problem when it comes to that. However, if you already have money in an emergency fund and you have it stashed away in a savings account somewhere and you want to keep building that emergency fund up a little bit, then I think it makes sense to put some money into I bonds. The extra interest that you'll earn with an I bond could be worth it because it's going to be significantly more than you're going to earn in a savings account. Like even the best savings accounts right now that are increasing rates, they're probably at about 2.5%, max 3%. And here you're talking about 9.62, or even if it goes down, if it's, probably at least going to be double or triple what you're going to get out of a savings account. Having a small portion of your portfolio in I bonds just to hedge against inflation and have a little bit of extra cash available when you need it isn't a horrible idea, even if you have to lock up your money for a year.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up.
If you guys want to watch more videos about money, financial independence, click on this video right here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great day out there. Keep stacking those wins for your family. And see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.